Hey everyone, it's Ashley from Her Homemaking Heart. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing another chat because every time I post those, I do feel like they are relatable, and so I thought I would share another chat video with you guys today. I'm outside again because two of my children are sleeping inside. One of them is homesick from school and the other one is my toddler, and both of them are sick. But I've been thinking a lot this week and I really wanted to talk on something, and I was really trying to think of like what I want this video to be, what I want to call it, and kind of the main points I want to talk about. And honestly, I don't have a layout plan, if I'm being honest, but the one thing that kept coming to mind is how we really judged Rory Gilmore. Yes, I'm gonna go Gilmore Girls right now. We judged Rory Gilmore way too harshly, and I just want to sit here and say, as someone who is turning 29 this year, I am in my Rory Gilmore era. Okay, and I know I know obviously that is saying a lot, because I'm just going to be honest, I am not privileged in the way Rory Gilmore was privileged, you know, and I know that that's something a lot of people talk about when they talk about like Rory's downfall. Sorry, I hit my glasses. But the one thing I want to say is I feel like a lot of women who are my age, and honestly there's been a few videos I've watched lately that I've talked about this. I'm going to leave them linked below because I know I'm not the only one, but a lot of women my age are feeling like our lives are lacking direction, and honestly I think even like lacking purpose. And I think that honestly is discouraging to so many of us. But the one thing I keep thinking of is every time I think of this, I think of Rory Gilmore. And a lot of people, if you're not a Gilmore Girls fan, you probably won't understand what I'm talking about. But if you are, a lot of people have really bid hard on Rory and said like, oh, you know, she failed. She had all of this, you know, privilege and she wasted it. There's a squirrel eating over there. You know, she wasted all of that privilege and like her ending sucked. She should have been more. But I want to say I've always wholeheartedly disagreed with that statement, okay? I feel like Rory Gilmore's ending was perfect. And the reason I want to say this is because it's realistic. You know, yes, she could have, you know, graduated from Yale, or, and I'm sorry if there's spoilers in this, but I mean, this show's like really old, so if you're late to the Gilmore Girls, I still encourage you to go watch it, but there may be some spoilers in this video. Yeah, so a lot of people have said, you know, she had a lot of privilege, her ending should have been different, she could have achieved more, what happened to her, but I feel like her ending is the perfect ending, and the reason for that is because it is open-ended and it is realistic. And I feel like so many of us who are her age are literally in her exact same position where we are, you know, approaching our early 30s and we don't have it all figured out, you know. And I want to talk about also my life and my past. So whenever I had a child, I was 18. I did go to college when she was a year old, and I decided to drop out of that and pursue a, you know, just being a homemaker and staying home. And that led me down the rabbit trail to homeschooling, and I started homeschooling until this year, as you guys know. And I felt, you know, in my early 20s, I felt like I know what my life is going to look like. This is it. This is it entirely. And nothing is going to change that. Nothing is going to deter my path. I'm going to continue down this path, you know, because this is it. You know what I mean? I had to give a moment for somebody driving by on a bike because I just didn't want them to feel like they were like being recorded. But anyways, so I basically planned out my path, I guess, for myself, and kind of it was just kind of planned because in my eyes, you know, as someone who became a Christian, you know, this is what Christian women do, this is what Christian moms do. We homeschool, we stay home full time, and that's that, you know, nothing's gonna get in the way. And I really had this like narrow vision of like what my life was, and like this was it. However, this year came around, I planned to homeschool my kids, and they said, listen, we really want to go to school. And I was, if I'm being honest, I didn't share a lot about why I stopped homeschooling, but there were a lot of reasons, mostly because they wanted to try it and I wanted to give them the opportunity. I don't believe in forcing children to be homeschooled. Like, I do think like we are the parent and we are, required to make the best decision possible. But at the same time, I do think we have to take their opinions into account as they get older, especially if, traditional schooling can be a good alternative. There are schools I wouldn't send my kids to, but the one they're at, I am fairly comfortable with. And so, I decided to give it a chance. And not just that, but even just, I felt like homeschooling, in my opinion, it is really difficult and it is really stressful. You do have to prioritize that first. And that totally is fine if that is what you want to do. And if that's what God calls you to. But it is difficult, and a lot of the homeschool community, I feel like, doesn't want to see quitting homeschool as the answer, but sometimes it is the answer, at least for a season. And so that was the season that I found myself in. Towards the end of homeschooling, I was feeling some adrenal issues, like adrenal fatigue, which has since disappeared, from them being at school. In my opinion, I do think taking that responsibility off has really helped my mental health. And that is like my honest opinion, even though I love homeschooling and I'm not against doing it in the future. But I just want to say, I had this, path kind of planned out. And so when my kids want to go to school, now I'm left like, what's my path now? What is it? Like, sometimes we can get really comfortable in our circumstances and even want to hang on to things which maybe God's not even calling us to, but we just feel like it's comfortable, it's familiar. And the thing with me homeschooling is, if I continue to do that, I don't have to think. I don't have to think about what's the next chapter of my life. And that is comfortable. That is easy. It's not easy to homeschool, but it's easy because I can accept, this is just what I'm going to continue doing, and I don't have to really think about it because it's laid out for me. But now, the season I'm in, I am in a season of prayer and asking God where He wants me to go from here. Do I pull them out and homeschool again? They really don't want to be, if I'm being honest, they don't want to be pulled out of school. If I have to, obviously I would, but there's nothing drastic happening that is like a do or die where it's like, I need to pull them out right now. But at the same time, I am in a season of prayer and asking God, like, what do you want me to do? And I'm being honest, okay, I've recently had some opportunities come my way. I went to school for early childhood education, and I've recently had a few job opportunities in the early childhood education field. I've turned down the opportunities so far because they did not fit with what I want. However, there is one I am considering, and I'm actually going to meet with the lady tomorrow. And honestly, I'm really not sure about it. I don't even know if that's what I want to do. I don't know if that's what God even wants me to do. But the reason I'm meeting with her is because I feel like I need to get out of my comfort zone, and if meeting someone for an interview can help me achieve that, then I'm going to do that, even though I don't necessarily know that it's something I want to do. But I just really wanted to talk about this, and about how if you are in your late 20s, your early 20s, honestly, even your 30s, your 40s, whatever, and you're feeling like, you're in a new chapter of life and you're like, I don't know what's next. I just want to validate you and say, I think a lot of people are in this boat. So my husband is older than me. I don't know if I ever shared this, but he's older. He's actually going to be 42 this year, or he is 42. I can't remember. But he's 13 years older than me, so I'd have to do the math, whatever. But I was actually telling him about this, and he said, oh yeah, I actually felt the same until, honestly, I think he said his 40s, until he turned 40, and then everything started falling in place for him. He said, he definitely felt the same way when he was in his 20s and even his 30s. And honestly, I think a lot of people feel this way. And it can be discouraging at times because if you look on social media, you will see loads of people who look like they know where they're headed in life. Or if you look around, you'll see many people in these jobs and, they have the nice car, they have the house, they have, and this doesn't have to be even just career. Like, you could have a career and then be looking in on people with families and being in your late 20s and saying, oh, I wish I had a family. I wish I was a homeschool mom. I wish I was a homesteader. I wish I could retire, all of that. I wish I could be an entrepreneur. I wish I could start a YouTube channel. There's like, you could compare from whatever side of the fence you're on. But regardless of where you stand, I feel like this is a fairly common experience for people of our age groups. And I think it's easy to feel like you're the only one. So I want to talk about this, guys. I want to talk about how at 29 years old, I do feel sometimes like I lack purpose. And I know like people are going to come on here and say you're a Christian, of course you have purpose, and I know that. But that doesn't really take away from the fact that I feel like I'm lacking direction and wondering what is next for me. I'm sorry, I have had a cold lately if I sound like really nasally and weird. But yeah, this is like aside from all of that. And of course, we can look to other things to build our identity around. But of course, the most important thing is Jesus. And I don't want to neglect that truth. But aside from that, I still feel like sometimes when things change in your life, you can feel like you are at a crossroads and you don't really know what the next step is. And I kind of feel like that's where I am right now, if I'm being honest. It's like, do I go work part-time? I don't want to work any old job, to be honest. Like, I could go tomorrow and get a cashier job, and I mean, I could have a job even in the early childhood education field, but I don't want to sacrifice certain things, like not being the one to mainly be, picking up my kids and bringing them to school and stuff. There are things I don't want to sacrifice, and I think I'm blessed to be in a position where I can actually think about things instead of just, jumping into something without giving it any thought. Even though I do tend to do that, I am a very impulsive person, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, if I'm being honest, to be impulsive. I actually think sometimes it's a good thing, because I think sometimes we can fall into being too comfortable and too reserved. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be impulsive sometimes. But at the same time, I am glad that, I'm not forced to go get any old job and kind of just settle that way. And I can really think about these things. I still am in a position where I can take out a student loan if I want, which not everyone is in that position. And yeah, like, I have a lot of freedom right now to decide if I want to go back to homeschool, I can do that. My husband would totally be on board. And yeah, I have a lot of freedom right now, but at the same time, I am just in a position where it's like, I don't really know what's next. Yeah, honestly, that's really it. Like, I don't have any conclusive thoughts right now. I'm just talking out loud, and I want to share this because I feel like sometimes, or honestly, there's probably at least one season for every person living that has, been in this position and wondering, what's next for me? What's the next step? And yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard on your self-esteem. It's kind of like a quarter life crisis. Like, that's kind of what I feel it is. It's like, I need to do something, I need to do it now, but I don't know what. And like I said, I'm gonna link 2 videos that were talking about this, because literally there's actually been more than one video that I've watched recently where I'm like, I totally feel this. I feel this. And I want to share those with you guys too, because I want you to see how many people truly have been in this situation in their 20s. So that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. I'm gonna go warm up my coffee because it is definitely cold. And yeah, I have to go pick up my daughter soon. I know I said I'd give you guys a school update. Honestly, I don't have one, and that is because of feeling a little back and forth right now, other than to say, I am going to say my kids really like it. They're enjoying themselves. I don't love everything about it, if I'm being honest. The pandemic really put a lot of educators in a hard position, and yeah, there are things I just don't like. There are things I do. So that's all for today's video. I will hopefully give you guys a school update soon, but until then, I hope you will subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know, are you in your Rory Gilmore era? Are you? Yeah, we judged her too harshly, y'all. We owe her an apology, but I will see you guys in the next one. God bless.